Long before cities covered the earth, humans lived at nature's mercy. They had no hospitals, no weather forecasts, and no modern shelters. Every day was a struggle to find food, water, and safety. But sometimes, survival meant facing something far more powerful than any predator. It was nature itself. A sudden earthquake could tear their world apart in seconds. A volcanic eruption could turn daylight into darkness. A flood could erase an entire settlement overnight. And a wildfire could race across the land faster than they could run. Yet somehow, humans kept surviving. They watched the world around them. They learned where danger appeared first. And they learned that nature often gave warnings. The real question was whether they could recognize those warnings in time. One morning, the ground beneath them began to tremble. At first, nobody understood what was happening. Then the shaking became violent. Cracks suddenly appeared beneath their feet. Their fragile shelters began collapsing. The smartest thing they could do was escape falling objects. They moved toward open ground. There were fewer walls, trees, and cliffs to fall on them. But the earthquake was not finished. Aftershocks continued to shake the land. They waited until the earth finally became still. When they returned, their home was almost unrecognizable. But they had survived. And every disaster taught them something new. They were slowly learning how to read the earth. But earthquakes were not the only danger beneath their feet. Far away, a mountain had begun to breathe smoke. The humans did not know what a volcano was. They only knew that something terrible was coming. Then the mountain exploded. Fire and rock shot high into the sky. Then darkness began spreading across the land. Ash fell like strange gray snow. Breathing became difficult. So they moved away from the mountain. They searched for cleaner air and safer ground. They followed the safest paths through the wilderness. They carried what little food they could save. Behind them, their familiar world disappeared beneath ash. But once again, humans chose movement over surrender. For a while, the survivors found peace beside a wide river. The river gave them water, fish, and fertile land. But rivers could also become deadly. Far upstream, heavy rain had begun. The water slowly climbed higher. Then it rushed beyond its banks. The humans grabbed their children and food. They abandoned everything they could not carry. The safest place was higher ground. They climbed until the water could no longer reach them. From above, they watched their old home disappear. The flood carried away trees, tools, and shelters. But it also left something behind. The land became rich with new soil. Once again, disaster had taught them how to adapt. But the greatest danger was not always coming from the ground. Sometimes, danger began with a single spark. A lightning strike hit the dry grass. Within moments, the flames began moving. The wind pushed the fire faster and farther. Smoke covered the sky. Animals began fleeing in every direction. The humans followed the animals away from the flames. They searched for places where the fire could not easily reach. Rocky ground gave them a safer path. The river became another barrier between them and the flames. They waited as the fire consumed the dry land. Hours later, the flames began to weaken. The land was black, but the survivors were alive. And once again, they had learned the power of escape. But sometimes, there was nowhere to run. The danger came from the sky itself. A violent storm swept across the land. The wind became stronger with every passing moment. Trees began snapping around them. The humans rushed into natural shelters. Caves became more than homes. They became protection from the forces they could not control. They stayed together while the storm passed. Outside, lightning struck the ground. Thunder echoed through the mountains. But eventually, the roaring sky became quiet. The survivors stepped outside and looked around. Their shelter had protected them again. They were learning that survival was not always about fighting nature. By now, the humans had survived earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, fires, and storms. But surviving each disaster had changed them. They stopped seeing nature as completely unpredictable. They began noticing patterns. Animals could warn them that danger was near. Clouds could reveal a coming storm. Rising rivers could signal a flood. Smoke could mean a volcano was waking. And dry grass could become a warning of fire. Their greatest weapon was no longer a stone tool. It was knowledge. They passed what they learned from one generation to another. They remembered where floods had reached. They remembered where fire had spread. And they remembered where it was safe to return. So, how did ancient humans survive nature's deadliest disasters? They did not have modern technology. They could not stop an earthquake. They could not silence a volcano. They could not hold back a flood. And they could not command the weather. But they could change how they responded. They watched. They remembered. They warned one another. And when danger came, they moved. Their greatest advantage was cooperation. One person might notice the danger, but an entire group could survive it. And that may have been humanity's greatest survival skill of all.